a hot minute.
It's been a while.
But we're back.
You can hear my roommate in the other room yelling at his computer. He's trying to begin an emulator working, and it's not. Anyway, sports.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird with nothing going on to be trying to relaunch our podcast, but I think we were all a little bored, and we've been like mentioning since September, like, hey, we need to get back to it. We need to get back to it.
Our last upload was on September 27th, I believe.
So here we are.
And it totally wasn't a planned like hiatus either.
Yeah, well, what
had
happened was that I went to the beach with my wife and her family,
and I got a new job, so my time was weird.
Yeah, and then once I got back from that, it just like we missed that week that I was at the beach, and then it was like,
I think So when Hayden got a job, it was just so weird because we meet in the afternoons, and he went home till like 5, and then with you having a kid, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, and then I was working more at the gym too, and so. And it also was kind of a perfect storm to not let us have the podcast, but we're back.
We stopped right after the Colts game, which we had a high on the Falcons game, I think, after that, right? Yeah. And then it was just, we were real low on sports because it was
I think I was so mad. I just didn't.
We didn't want to talk about it.
And Panthers, I was no thanks. I don't want to talk about sports. But anyways, here we are. We're going to get into some stuff here. It ranges from where do the Major League Sports go to Hayden's Corona Diaries. So without further ado, I want to kind of get in and get y'all's thoughts on what you think the next steps are for the major sports leagues, that being the NFL, the NBA, who's still in season currently, even college football, NHL.
NHL hasn't canceled, right? They're still
correct.
They're just postponed.
So there's a lot of different things kind of going on. I've seen different things brought to the forefront of ideas to finish off the NBA season. Make no mistake about it, the NBA season, in my opinion, will finish. I don't know what they'll do as far as, because they still haven't concluded the regular season. Right now they would be in the playoffs if the season would have continued on. The things that I've seen have been anything from playing at Disney World,
I've seen that,
to playing in the Bahamas, to playing in Vegas. Right now in Vegas, as far as I know, the casinos are just empty hotels. A lot of those casinos have big ballrooms. You'll see, like, in the beginning of college basketball seasons, they'll play exhibition tournaments there.
Man, I didn't even think about how hard Vegas is hit with all this, because you can't be in enclosed and no sports betting.
No sports betting, no slots, nothing. Yeah. So I think Vegas could make a few bucks off of it. Obviously not replacing what they've lost. Another thing to think about is NFL, when they would get back going, when OTAs would start, all that kind of stuff. So kind of give me your thoughts on, we can start with the NBA because it seems like that's the most logical thing to think about. Yeah, and there, because Rudy Gobert just had to touch his hands all over the microphones at the press conference, and he just rubbed all the mics. Anyways, so they were the first to cancel. And so what are you guys' thoughts? What do you think is, I know that y'all aren't huge NBA guys, but in your mind, if you cared about the NBA, what would be a logical solution where maybe you do like a play-in game, or you just say, okay, the teams that are in the playoffs right now, those are the teams that go. You don't really have a ton of time to get too elaborate. Maybe you shorten the playoff series to 5 games instead of 7 games. What do y'all think?
See, it's weird with the NBA right now because I feel like there's so much going on and there's so many differentiating opinions. I think Mark Cuban was really strong a few days ago saying that, like, they're absolutely not ready to go back. And they were the first ones to jump on the whole suspension of the league.
Yeah, and I feel like it was almost like a race to see who could make the decision first.
And I feel like
once it started,
everything. Like it was like once the Italian soccer league canceled, which made sense because Italy was like hit really, really hard. Yeah. Then the NBA was like, well, we might as well cancel too.
At that point, though, you're kind of at a liability of like, if you're the one league that didn't cancel, everybody's looking at you and being like, why did you?
Well, did MMA continue on?
For UFC,
they tried.
They did, and then evidently they were going to fight on an island, which would have been awesome.
Awesome. Well, we just make it Hunger Games at that point. Nice. Right? We just throw them on an island and have them kill each other.
But like, back to what I was saying, like, see, I don't know, because the NBA, I feel like, is such an emotional led league in the first place. It's kind of hard for me to see them sensibly all getting together and making a decision right now.
For sure.
I think if anything happened, because those players are the most opinionated players, staffs, everything else. And I would say to be a very see. The thing is, to me, is I feel like at the easiest thing is to say just don't play with any fans. It's not necessarily the worst to play a basketball game without fans. I mean,
it would just be so weird. I've thought about like no fans being at games.
Well, see, I think it's worse if you're like baseball. If it's baseball and there's no fans, I think that's just awkward because it's just so quiet. It's so quiet all the time.
Do you remember a few years ago when the Orioles played in Baltimore? I can't remember who they played, but the Baltimore riots were going on, and it was a completely empty stadium. And the announcers like basically were like joking that it was like a golf match. They're like, he swings, and it's a double down the line.
There's so much noise going on during a basketball game. There's so much chatter. There's so much just ambient like noise from the shoes, the ball, whatever else on the court. I don't think it would be a weird thing for them to go back to playing in an empty stadium, but I want
to see it.
See, I think basketball and football would be much weirder than baseball because I think like basketball and football can be driven so much off of emotion. In my opinion, like when you play baseball, I feel like your emotions have to be much more at bay, but in football and basketball, a lot of times they feed off that emotion. And so think about like the Lakers and Clippers playing in the Western Conference Finals, and you can hear LeBron James shouting across the court, and you can hear the ball.
It would be entertaining for sure.
The only thing you hear is the ball bouncing against the wood floor.
It'd be like an entire mic'd up game.
Yeah, which
essentially, which I would really
that would be awesome.
I think it would be awesome.
I think that football is actually really interesting because you got 53 guys on a roster and then a whole host of
56.
Well, now it's like 55 to 6, something like that. So, and then a whole host of coaches and player personnel and all that. You're gonna have 100 people on your sideline.
Yeah.
At minimum, you think about then staffs, and you think about training staffs, and you think about
that's when I
the
feel like,
camera crews and all the media.
That's when I feel like they're gonna have to absolutely get super strict on who's the 100 people that you absolutely need on the side of the field.
And my thing is, I am not in favor of resuming leagues if we have to test the players before every game, because my wife is a nurse, and for a long time the fear in Tennessee, I would say, is that there aren't enough tests, maybe even US wide. There aren't enough tests. There's not enough ventilators. There's not enough masks. There's not enough this. There's not enough that. As a sports fan, I want sports to continue, but is it worth using? And now I'm sure that resources are more available, but I got into an argument with a guy because he told me that high school athletics should resume their sports in Tennessee. And I said, you're telling me that you want to use all those coronavirus tests
on high school sports,
on some high school sports.
It's not making any revenue.
I was a high school athlete. I ran track. I would have been devastated if my senior year would have been taken away. I also would hope that I would have some foresight as a high schooler to say, you know what, in retrospect, this isn't that important.
Yeah. I think for the most part, as a high schooler, it kind of cracks me up how all these teachers are like, I'm just feel so sad for these kids. And I get like some of them, like that's their meal, but like 90% of kids like, out of school, yeah!
That's what I was.
Yeah.
If this was me right now and I was in high school, I would be absolutely ecstatic.
Yeah,
I kind of had I had a good experience in high school as far as like athletics go, but truthfully, like I didn't start making a bunch of friends until college. Like I didn't have that many friends in high school. When I walked across the stage, everybody was like crying and stuff. I was like, "See ya!"
Yeah. I was like, I don't even want to be here. I was like, I hate this. And I wouldn't designate myself as an athlete in high school. I mean, like
athlete. That's amazing.
I ran cross country and not well, but I ran.
You did it.
I did it. Yeah. And so it didn't mean as much to me as maybe someone whose football is kind of like their life. For some of them, that's their last time they'll play.
Sure.
And I waited 4 years to finally start, and you lost that season. It's very, very dramatic. And I think for the most part, most students will just be like, that sucks. But if school's canceled, then school athletics are canceled.
Yeah. I think that is the biggest part about it is the extracurricular as far as schools, because it's like no kid is going to miss taking that final exam. Yeah. No kid is going to miss doing that last presentation. What they're going to miss is, we talked about sports, but that last play or prom or stuff like that. Like that
the stuff that they're doing with their friends.
Exactly.
Socially.
That's what they're going to miss is that last thing that they get to do. And it was taken away kind of quickly.
And those are extremely special moments. And but you can always say, hey, you know what? Like, so much more is going to come. So much more good's going to come. I loved my senior year, and I loved all like the last things I did, going to prom and all that stuff. Great memories, and I'm glad I have them. But I have newer memories that I enjoy more, and I think in maybe like right now it sucks, but in 2 years from now, when you're either in college or making friends or traveling the world or something, you're gonna realize that this is better.
One thing that I wanted to touch on is kind of the NFL and college football are the next things that have to get figured out, because college football,
I don't think that either one of those are going to be affected.
Yeah, I think more of the off-season programs will, as far as because NFL players, I don't feel bad for them at all because they're making millions of dollars. I do feel bad for these kids that are showing up on campus and stuff like that who are more or less, forced, and we can get into all this later, but they're not getting paid when they're bringing millions and millions of dollars to these schools, and then those people in charge are getting profits like crazy. Anyways, I think the off-season programs are what is going to be most affected. The next thing that on the NFL calendar is the schedule release, which typically is right before the draft. Last year was the week before the draft. Now they're from sportingnews.com. The NFL says it's looking to release the schedule no later than May 9th. That's 5 days away.
They just announced today that the NFL will not be doing international games.
Oh, I did see that.
I saw that.
Which I think is probably a good decision, not just for the coronavirus, but just in general.
It's like logistics. Like, you don't want to have to be like, well, let's see where we are in a few months. It's just like, let's call off now.
Yeah, and reevaluate next year.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard is most players hate those overseas games anyways, because with travel and everything, you've got a shortened week on both ends of it. And if those guys want to go see London or whatever, they're going to go in the off season. They have plenty of money, and so it's not that big of a deal to them. But honestly, I think the NFL has done PR wise. I think they've actually done a really good job. I think with Roger Goodell during the draft, I'm not getting into this whole, they made him so human, whatever. I think he was a little bit more likable.
This is for Luke. Sorry.
I think it is a little bit more likable. I think Roger Goodell came from the draft a little bit more likable. I almost kind of feel like it was like forced a little bit. But anyways,
he's just awkward. I think he's
just not a good public speaker. Maybe let someone else do it. You're just not good at it. In any other,
he's like, skull. Yeah.
In any other profession, you're not gonna let the CEO talk just because he's the CEO. If he's a horrible public speaker, you're probably not gonna let him do it. And it was just really forced.
I'm still working on these M&Ms, guys. Don't worry.
I think you have to, though, because it's just been like that for every year ever.
Well, the tradition with the first round pick. I can see it, like, but he announced. I don't know when he stopped.
I don't know.
It all ran together.
Because after a while, they were just like, "Oh, all right, this pick just came in," so I'm sure he stopped at like day 3. But
I remember I was following.
There was one point where he was literally sitting on his chair in like a t-shirt.
He leaned back,
leaned back, comfy.
It's like, what else is Goodell? He's got to earn that paycheck that actually he gave up, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, $40 million. That's a lot of money. But I did see that most of that is from bonuses that are easily attainable. But if you don't have an NFL season, you don't get the bonuses. So it's like,
well, okay. So this is something I wanted to bring up. You say we maybe get into it. So hypothetically, say this thing lasts another year, and college athletics just are kaput. Probably not. Almost definitely not going to happen. Say it does. And so then, like, we have all these scholarships offered out to these kids, and they're doing all these online classes. So at this point, these colleges were making money off these kids, and now they're losing money off these kids. I wonder if they didn't have sports for a year or two and they offered these 4-year scholarships or something, I wonder if they would start taking them away, or if that's like written in stone. That's honestly, a huge hypothetical.
Well, when you sign your national letter of intent, you're agreeing to your scholarship terms. So if you're a walk-on and you ever see a walk-on sign, they're not signing anything. The national letter of intent is agreeing to a scholarship. And so I don't know. Obviously this is really unprecedented. I think if there's not college football, if there isn't college football this fall, I think some schools could truthfully go under based on how much money these schools bring in.
Yeah.
This is just profits, I believe. Just profits that football teams bring in. Texas, their football program, $92 million. Tennessee, $70 million. LSU, $58 million. Michigan, 56. Notre Dame, 54. That's the top 5.
That's all football.
Yes, that's just football. And so what's coming next, if football isn't played in the fall, is cross country, track, golf, tennis.
All those schools.
Sports. All those programs are getting cut because they actually cost the university money anywhere from like $1 to $3 million a year is what they cost to the university, and football helps make up that deficit. And so if football isn't around in the fall, you can kiss scholarships for, I mean, they might have these programs still, but they're all going to be on a walk-on only basis if they do have them. But then again, you've got to pay to travel, for entries into events, pay for gear, pay for, just various things. So I think if college football doesn't come back, I think there's a lot of universities that might shut down in general, but the smaller programs, you've already seen it. It's already happened in some schools. Programs are just, I think it was Cincinnati was the first cut men's soccer.
I always kind of wonder, are these schools, are they almost like immediately like spending like money in, money out kind of? Are they like spending it on new things, or versus how much money are they sitting on?
I've heard that they have a reserve. I heard last week, I think they have a reserve of like 40 million, anywhere from 40 to 60 million dollars.
Depending on the school, probably.
So they can stay afloat, but I mean, a football season or two. I don't think this is going to last that long.
No. I think they'll play this year. It's just hypothetically, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, from the things that they have been saying and just different outlets and everything, all the athletic directors are already out there being like, yeah, we fully plan to and it sucks. It does suck. I kind of hate it for the kids, and I hate it for programs that are kind of on that, like, they're right there getting ready to like make a jump to maybe the next level of like competitiveness is which I'm sure in all reality, let's be honest, we know the guys are out working out and doing things that with
but not with their team, not running routes for their quarterback,
not as an organized, school affiliated deal. But I'm sure that they're out doing all kinds of stuff. But I feel bad for the ones that are on that cusp.
I almost think of Tennessee, because like a Tennessee, even a Texas A&M, the two teams being Braden but I kind of think about those two schools because they've recruited well. They've got Jimbo's. I mean, he's won a national championship already, but Jeremy Pruitt's an up and coming coach, and you need all those reps that you can get. Guys enroll early all the time now. Mm-hmm. The majority of guys are enrolling early so they can get more reps. And I think once there is football in the fall, I think the first couple weeks are going to be rough. Like, I think it's gonna be I'm gonna watch every minute I can because it's football, but I think it is gonna be like the struggle bus.
Well, it's just like how even when you get a full off season, like those first games, even in like the NFL, it's some sloppy play, and then so now like take away, it seems like there's a good chance that they take away a few, if not the entire preseason, and then just kind of hope that they can run camp into those extra weeks. Yeah. It's
I don't think really preseason does as much for those NFL guys, but I do think like a lot of these bigger programs that didn't necessarily schedule cupcakes at the beginning of the season are like thinking like, oh shoot,
especially like Tennessee.
Yeah, like Tennessee, they've got Oklahoma, right? Yeah, and so, but I think Tennessee's in a good situation as far as that because I think they're the underdog in that. But if you think about like a big school, scheduling someone somewhat good, hoping for a national championship that year, and now you're looking at it thinking like, oh shoot, we're not going to get in till middle of July, instead of the 1st of June, or guys not even leaving campus. Next thing I want to talk about, the NFL draft recap. As everyone expected, it blew ratings out of the water because first of all, no one has anything to do. Mm-hmm. It was the first live sporting event we had in over a month, unless you count the WNBA draft, which I don't. But everyone was just sitting at home waiting for something to come on their television, and so it was the most watched draft ever. But also, you don't have 500,000 people at the draft like you did last year in Nashville.
And it went really well. It went really smooth.
Yeah, I was shocked at. We talked about Roger Goodell already, but like how I thought they did a really good job of showing the GMs and the coaches. And I almost prefer.
We all thought of the same thing.
Yeah, we did. I also really prefer seeing general managers and coaches in their houses.
That was cool.
And these kids in their houses. Like, I prefer that. I didn't care for the overblown stories about.
I was going to say, one thing that was definitely missed the mark was how everybody had a relative die. One of our draft picks, one of our later ones, it was like his grandmother died of natural causes in 2008, and I'm like, that's just what happens.
They're just old.
It's sad, but like that's not. I don't know what's driving him. I can't speak for him, but like probably not that.
Yeah, well, the biggest one I saw was T. Higgins, who went to Clemson, is from Oak Ridge. He gets drafted to the Bengals, first pick of the second round, and it was like All-American or Mr. Basketball in Mr. Basketball, Mr. Football from Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Cool.
Mother's battled addiction for 12 years. It's like, oh my Lord.
Why you gotta bring that up, bro?
That's the last bullet point you have? Like, we can talk about the Titans real quick as far as their draft. First round they took. Oh gosh, Braden. First round they took Isaiah Wilson.
He's like your cousin, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We look exactly the same. He was a right tackle for Georgia. He's 6'6", 350. A lot of people have described him as a mauler type. I think he'll do really well as far as run blocking. It seems like he has to work on pass protection, which, to be honest, I think is kind of Jack Conklin too, especially after his ACL injury. But Isaiah Wilson, just a big dude. He just turned 21 last month. Yeah. So that's super encouraging.
That's 5 years younger than me.
Yeah, when I see these guys like he's 21, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? But I thought it was a good pick. What do y'all think? I thought they took best available, which I think that's what good general managers do, is they take best available. What were y'all's thoughts on that pick?
It was surprising to me. I was honestly expecting us to go defensive back right away.
Probably a little better.
But I was expecting us to go defensive back right away. I think there was so much talk around defensive back and us possibly not signing Logan Ryan, and then
we're definitely not signing him now.
Yeah, definitely not. But I think the great thing is I think we ended up getting Kristen Fulton.
We're getting to that one. I haven't got there yet, Brayden.
Sorry.
We're going pick by pick.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I was, when I first got like really into football, like to start thinking about draft picks and stuff, was the year we drafted Mariota. And it was so easy because we picked so soon. So there's like, we're going to get one of the top 10 guys because we're picking in the top 10. So it's easy to know the top 10 guys. Yeah. Now we're picking at, what was it, 28?
29.
And yeah, that's right. We're picking at 29. It's like, dog, we could get a top 40, and like I don't know that after that. So,
and it seemed like everything was like we didn't really know a big board per se, because no one was talking to the media. There weren't pro days. There weren't, the combine was there, but
no one was listening to the radio because
there wasn't sports going on.
We weren't in the car.
Do you think it was more exciting that way also, though? Because I feel like there was...
I think there were a lot more surprises.
Yes.
Jordan Love to the Packers.
Yeah. Then who wasn't surprised was Connor. He called that. I was with him. He said, watch, we're about to draft a quarterback, and I'm going to love it, but the subreddit's going to hate it. Sure enough, they draft Jordan Love. I was a little bit
more surprised by the whole Jalen Hurts to the Eagles. It makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense.
I get it, but I don't.
Yeah.
Round 2, like everything I'd seen, of course, like I'm not a general manager, but I'd seen like 3rd round and they take him in the 2nd, and I'm just like,
how do you feel if you're Carson Wentz? Is like, you either think, okay, like, this kid, could develop.
Well, a lot of people were
like, are you expecting me to get hurt again? Like, is this my insurance policy? He probably knows that, but also it's kind of a slap.
But like an insurance policy is like trading a 4th for Ryan Tannehill. Right. It's not drafting Jalen Hurts with your 2nd round pick. Moving on, round 2, they take Christian Fulton, cornerback out of LSU. I love this pick. I didn't judge Isaiah Wilson's pick until I saw the day 2 picks, because in my mind there were bigger needs than offensive tackle, but I was like, John Robinson and Mike Vrabel are professionals. They've got a plan in place, and sure enough they did. A lot of stuff I'd seen had Christian Fulton going in the 1st round. Sure. I think that wasn't as much of Christian Fulton falling, but more guys rising, like as weird, because like I didn't expect Jalen Hurts to go in the 2nd round. So if you think about Jalen Hurts getting put in the 2nd round, well then that moves everyone back a spot.
I think this entire draft was like that, though. If you really look at it, there was so many people left by day 2. Like going into day 2, you were almost like,
there's a lot of people.
Heck, like this is pretty much the first day of the draft right now. Like this is not.
Christian Fulton, I heard a stat last week that against T. Higgins, Henry Ruggs, and Jerry Jeudy, he allowed 3 catches for 19 yards.
That's good stuff.
5 incompletions, 2 pass breakups, no touchdowns.
All last year?
Yeah.
Well, so wasn't he suspended for 2 years for...
He's suspended 2 years. It got knocked down to 1.
Okay.
What happened is that they were giving him a drug test that was a PED test. And
I know the story. It's really funny.
He thought that he could get popped for weed, which I've been drug tested as an NCAA athlete. They don't like really let you in on like what you're getting tested for. Yeah. So he had someone else's urine, and when you get tested, if your urine is in a certain temperature, then it gets flagged. Well, his got flagged, He'd smoked weed like 2 days before. Nice. So he gets suspended for 2 years, and then they get lawyers involved. It gets knocked back down to 1. Some people were saying that like that was a red flag, and I like kind of get that, but especially half the states have legalized weed.
That's what I was wondering, like if he fell at all because of that.
Well, he's from Louisiana, which I don't think it's legal there. I think some of it had to do with that, and I think some of that is like John Robinson and Mike Vrabel doing their due diligence and like being able to meet with a player and knowing his character. We saw the same thing with Jeffrey Simmons last year.
It's not an issue anymore because you can't be suspended for...
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like
whatever.
That thing that he was going to get suspended for was weed, and that's you. They don't test for it in the NFL now. So.
I don't know if this is true, but I had heard... that's why I was chuckling during the story, was because I had heard that he was going to be tested, and so he had possession of someone else's piss that he was going to use, but he decided not to use it, but they still caught him with the piss.
That could be true.
I don't know if that's true. All I know is if that's true, that's hilarious. And also, oh, come on. Like, he used it. I don't know. It could be fake news, but...
round 3, they take Darrington Evans, running back from Appalachian State. I really like this pick.
It's Appalachian State.
Yeah, guy's a running back. I hadn't really heard of him. I mean, now that I think about it, like I've watched a couple of App State games. I watched like the Penn State one, North Carolina, South Carolina. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do remember him now. Guy ran a 4.41. They didn't throw to him a ton out of the backfield, but he went in to college as a receiver, is what his coach said that's now at Mizzou. I like that pick a lot. Titans fans don't want to hear this, but as a compliment to Derrick Henry, but also Derrick Henry's on a 1-year contract right now.
Yeah, you never know. Mm-hmm. I feel like we've been calling for that kind of pick for like 3 years now.
Yeah,
like let's get a mid-round pick where we spend it on a running back and
quick guy who can catch the ball.
We've been asking for that for it seems like forever.
So I think we were all texting during the draft, and we were like, I was saying like, what about like Keyshawn Vaughn from Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
Or like,
he went in the 3rd a lot earlier than a lot of people thought he would to the Bucks.
Yeah.
The next pick, round 5, they didn't have a 4th rounder because they traded for Ryan Tannehill. Was Laurel Murchison. He was a defensive lineman from NC State. I just say he was a defensive lineman because he kind of lined up everywhere. He lined up as a nose tackle, as an end. And so he kind of did it all, which a lot of people were saying like that versatility is kind of what Jarrell Casey was to the Titans. Which
it seems like he's more of a Austin Johnson kind of replacement than a Casey. But
I think a Jarrell Casey replacement looks a little bit more like Jeffrey Simmons, and then Jadeveon Clowney moves in.
Yeah,
we
can talk about that later.
Yeah, we can. Murchison, from what I've heard, he's super raw as a prospect. He so he went to JUCO out of high school, then went to NC State. When he got to NC State, they had to teach him how to line up on the defensive line. Like, he didn't even know how to line up on the defensive line. So I think Vrabel will do really well with him. Round 7, they had 2 picks. Cole McDonald, who's a quarterback from Hawaii.
Everybody's golden boy, right?
And everybody loves him right now just because he's...
And Chris Jackson, a defensive back from Marshall. I like the McDonald pick. I think it was like they were going to be fighting over him as an undrafted free agent, and so they took him in the 7th. People are like, why'd they take him? I'm like, well, we don't have a backup quarterback right now unless you feel really good about Logan Woodside.
Yeah, I was going to say, you leave Logan Woodside alone.
Oh, you feel good about Logan Woodside?
He exists, and he is a person.
Was he on a roster?
He has feelings.
Was he on someone else's roster last year?
Yes, ours in preseason. And
then he missed the team.
And then,
he was hurt.
Squad, right?
Yeah. Practice squad and then injured reserve, I think. Anyways.
Leave him alone.
We signed a kicker. Tucker McCann is a free agent out of Mizzou. I think that's like a...
Well, you forgot to mention that we traded a 7th for a 6th next year. Yeah. Which is
the Chiefs, so it could end up being the first pick of the 7th round, technically.
Is that how that works? Do they swap? You mean the last pick?
Yeah. No. It's the last pick of the 6th round, which I'm saying in turn
it's
almost acts as the first round.
We're going to beat the Chiefs this year, so it's fine.
Okay. I hope you feel good about that. I think the kicker is just, it's not a camp body. I think it's a competition, but I think the best guy out of Joseph and Tucker McCann will make the roster. Cole Clowney update. We'll just touch on this. There hasn't been a whole lot of news really.
A lot of like the Seahawks stuff that we really are like, yeah, that's the game's gonna be.
Like Jaron Reed said that he got number 90 back, which is what Clowney wore last year, and then Schneider, the general manager, came back and was like, I didn't approve that, and so everybody's like, okay, whatever. We're confused. The names I'm hearing, the 4 teams I'm hearing are the Titans, the Seahawks, which I don't think the Seahawks are in anymore. I think the Seahawks they're more looking like if we can get them for the right price, which their price I think is under $10 million. They move up in the second round to get Darrell Taylor from Tennessee. Plays the same position as Clowney. Obviously isn't Jadeveon Clowney, but they move up, give up assets to get him. The Browns and the Colts. Now I will be hot if he goes to the Colts, just because he moves from the Texans and then goes to the Seahawks, which we don't see him, but then moves back into the division of the Colts. I'll be hot if that happens.
I mean, he's really close to us hating him already. He does something like that to us.
Yeah.
How dare he?
Yeah, how dare he not pick us?
Yeah.
So that's who it seems like. My top 3 takeaways, I kind of gave some studs and duds for the draft. I think the teams that had the 3 best drafts, the Ravens, they took Patrick Queen in the first, a linebacker from LSU. Then they take J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State in the second. And I thought that was an awesome pick, because when you look back to see how they didn't succeed against the Titans in the playoffs, it was because Mark Ingram was banged up. I think it's an insurance policy for Mark Ingram, but also an eventual replacement. They take Justin Madubuike, who's a defensive lineman for A&M. I really liked him. I thought he was going to go in the second. I thought we had a chance to take him in the second. Then they take Devin Duvernay.
I'll go check that. You guys keep going.
A wide receiver from Texas. Hayden's doorbell just rang, so he's going to grab it. And then surprisingly, I thought the Cowboys had a really good draft. Jerry Jones was on his $250 million yacht. He takes CeeDee Lamb in the first, who evidently they didn't even have on their draft board. They take him, which I thought was really good, because I think that was the best available. But I also like, you're going to cover Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb's taking Dez's number.
Yeah, it was Michael Irvins, then Dez, and now CeeDee Lamb. So I'm pretty excited to see CeeDee Lamb. And then they take Trevon Diggs in the second round, cornerback out of Alabama, Stephon Diggs' little brother. And then I thought the Vikings had a really good draft. They take Justin Jefferson in the first after the Eagles took Jalen Reagor, which I didn't get because I thought Justin Jefferson was one of the top wide receivers in the draft. Then they take Jeff Gladney, a cornerback out of TCU, who that was a glaring need for them, in my opinion.
That's honestly when I think it was the first round for our pick. I was like, Gladney, come on, Gladney.
Because that was their second first round pick.
Yeah, and so I was a little upset when we didn't take him, but I'm glad looking now.
Well, we didn't really have a chance. So then they take Ezra Cleveland, who's an offensive tackle. Then they take Cam Dantzler, cornerback out of Mississippi State. I really liked him. He's like a 6'1" cornerback. He's real big.
Yeah. Sounds like a fake Cam Chancellor.
Dantzler.
Like he just Cam Chancellor put on a mustache and said, I'm declaring for the draft.
Yeah, it's like
what's your name? Cam Dantzler.
It was like the Jerry Rice commercial from a few years ago that he like goes to the combine and they're like, what's your name? And it's like Larry Price or something. So Cam Dantzler. Then they take James Lynch, a defensive lineman from Baylor, I think, and then Troy Dye, a linebacker from Oregon, who I was surprised he slid that far.
Who are we talking about right now?
The Vikings.
Okay.
I thought they had a good draft. My other two, Hayden, real quick, were Ravens, Cowboys. I thought they both had good drafts.
Also, who was at your door?
All NFC. So some guys have been like, I've been hearing you having some problems with some carpenter bees, and I'm like, I'll figure it out. You're fine. He's like, when's a good time for me to come back? And I'm like, fuck. So I was like, tomorrow sometime I'll be here, and I'm not gonna answer the door if somebody rings the doorbell tomorrow. That's all I know.
Have you really been having problems with carpenter bees?
No, I mean
we have a huge problem with carpenter bees, and
guys,
we got someone
hornets out there.
I know
right
we got someone out to our house, and they sprayed for mosquitoes, and I was like, hey, and I was at work, and I was like, hey, just ask them like how much carpenter bee treatment would be. $275, and I was like, nah, bro, I got a fly swatter. We'll be all right.
I got a tennis racket. I got one of those like light shocker things. What am I trying to say? UV light.
Yeah.
Whatever. Works charms. I commit genocide every night. Anyways, go ahead.
What's our time at right now?
We're at like 40 minutes.
Oh, nice. I've been kind of trying to move quick because I thought we were way past that. Next thing we're going to talk about real quick. We talked about the coronavirus. Hayden is the only person I know Well, Braden's sister had it.
So my sister and her fiance both had it, but
he was at the Tyson chicken plants. That's how he got it.
Yeah, she's a nurse, so who knows?
Yeah, and so I mean, I know of your sister, but I know Hayden's the only person I like interact with.
Hayden's famous because he got counted in the pandemic count.
There's a good
By
chance.
the way,
You're just a statistic.
There's a chance I was the first person in Montgomery County.
Also,
you're just a statistic.
Did you disinfect the house? Because this is the first time we've been over since.
It doesn't survive more than a couple days on surfaces. I'm sure you're fine.
Freak.
You know,
my wife's 37 and a half weeks pregnant.
I was really actually debating on like wearing a mask over here just to kind of be funny, but also be like.
Well, so I probably got it like. So
15th of March.
We'll say it was like that Wednesday because I was with you. Is when the NBA shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Was that when we had lunch together or no?
I think that was not the same day. But
That was we had the ones on the 5th because we talked about it before.
Yeah,
we tried to map it
and then
out.
you got it
Sure we
the
didn't have it.
15th.
So the day the NBA shut down, a week later, I was starting. So 6 days later, I was starting to get like, I don't feel so great, and that's when it
I
started.
remember you saying like, "Man, it's gonna be something if I've got the corona." We're like, "Yeah, that'd be really funny, huh?"
And so I got a week later. I still had this fever, and like, so I go to a week long fever is not good, so I go to the doctor, and like, you know, this is like right when lockdown had just really started getting going. Everyone's all paranoid, which maybe you should be. So I go to the doctor.
That it was cracked up to be
the coronavirus?
Yeah.
There's so many differentiating.
Not for me. It sucked because for 10 days I had it. I didn't know I had it because it wasn't until after I was fine that they confirmed it was coronavirus.
We know you don't have it anymore, but yeah,
did.
you had it.
Yeah, and so for me, I had. A lot of people have chest problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, respiratory issues.
I didn't have any of that.
See, my sister had a lot of that.
Yeah.
She said that like
I'm the biggest baby in the world when I'm sick. My wife can attest. I would have been like, if I would have gotten the coronavirus, I would have been like,
oh Lord,
this is it.
Yeah,
I'm dying.
Well, there were days where I just like didn't want. Like, oh God, when you're sick. But you don't feel bad here. Mm-hmm. You just want to eat, like, because that's what you look forward to. You don't want to like get up, and so you just want to eat. And so I remember I like ordered some food, had it delivered to me, and I'm like, I think it was Arby's or something. I'm like, getting Arby's, man, can't wait to eat this. Go in, I bite, can't taste shit.
You're like,
you can't taste anything, and you're like, I hate this.
you should have tried beer.
This is the worst. I hate this.
You should have tried beer.
oh man, perfect.
I don't really know if beer is. I don't think the taste is the thing that's stopping me from drinking beer.
Yeah, I don't know.
But so like, Kylie's like, you want me to bring you anything? I'm like, bring me the spiciest thing you can find. Like, I'm like, get spicy ramen, spicy, because I just need to taste something.
I want to feel alive.
And I couldn't, and so for like 5 days, like I couldn't taste anything. It was the worst.
Did you get the metal thing?
I didn't get the metal taste. No. It reminded me a lot of when I was undiagnosed with diabetes. God, I get everything. When I was undiagnosed with diabetes, like I would get super thirsty, and then like at night I'd like wake up in the morning and I'd be like, my mouth is like dry and disgusting. It reminded me a lot of that. It was not fun. But I only had a bad headache. It almost seemed like sinuses, but not quite. A slight tickle in the throat, nothing really crazy. And I just didn't have, I had like chills and shakes, but no respiratory problems. And for the most part, it just was like a really bad head cold. So for like 10 days. I will say, I reacted the same way when you told me you had coronavirus as when you told me you had diabetes. Hayden called me when he had diabetes. He had been losing a ton of weight, and then one of our friends, Miles, like wasn't super good friends with Hayden at the time. He was like, Hayden,
you need to go to the doctor. And Hayden was like,
because it had been like a month before I had seen him, so I went from what I look like now to Holocaust victim in some ways.
And he was like, dude, you need to go to the doctor. I think it was like an outside voice, and you were like,
I was like,
okay, I should go. Yeah. And so Hayden calls me, and he was like, hey, I just want to let you know that I have diabetes. And I was like, that's hilarious. Oh my god,
of course you do.
And then Hayden was like, I'm so glad you said that because my mom. Oh shoot. Sorry, Siri. Hayden was like, I'm so glad you said that because my mom cried on the phone. And I kind of did the same thing. I'm just kind of like coronavirus. So I was like,
coronavirus. I've been to the ER twice for zits. Once. There's a picture of me. I got a zit right there, and it got so puff infected that I had to go to the ER, and they couldn't lance it because they're like, yeah, it could potentially.
Oh, you could have been on a Dr. Pimple Popper video.
They said if you lance it and you cut it wrong, it could seep into your brain and kill you. Oh, so I was like, what? And they put me on an IV
for a pimple.
Yes, and then that same year, this was my.
You have the strangest health history.
I know. This was my freshman year of college.
You got type 1 diabetes as a 23-year-old guy.
And then that same year, I got that one. I had an ingrown hair that got infected. And so I couldn't put my arm down. I was just like this. Otherwise it hurt. And so like for like a few days I'm like this.
Hey, what's wrong, dude? Nothing, just
draining it, giving me antibiotics, and it was just like I can't put my arm down. I can't. And then it happened again.
Did your hand fall asleep all the time?
I don't know. It happened again in the same arm, but I didn't have to go that time to the ER.
Oh man.
I haven't had that. Oh, and then last year, almost right around this time, did you guys see when I my tooth got infected?
Yes.
And it was like this. So another great story. It got so swollen. I'm like, I wonder if it's infected or just like swollen from blood. And so I took one of my lances from my diabetes, and I went in there and I poked it a few times, and I started bleeding, and I'm like, okay, it's just blood. It's nothing. So and this was in the middle of the night. So I go back to sleep, and I wake up an hour later, and I'm like, I'm gonna go check it again. And I like look, and everywhere I poked, there's just like pus. Like starting to come out. So then I took the lance again and I really poked it, and it just all in my
just the
mouth.
Thought of all of that bodily fluid in the mouth.
And so
I'm gonna throw up.
And I was like cleaning pools where I'm like pulling dead animals out of there, and they smell terrible. That's what my mouth tasted like.
Okay, and I think we're done with this.
Last thing is when
no, we're done.
I'm just saying when the dentist was like cleaning out and pulling the tooth and everything, he was like, ugh.
And that's someone that's like seen some stuff, know.
It's like, and the assistant are like, oh look at that. Oh, vocally goes,
like, oh gosh, what have I done?
Yeah, that was great.
Okay, last thing we're gonna touch on the reboot.
Past that.
So Jeremy Pruitt's Bagman.
Man, they are.
He has been busy.
Those stimulus checks.
Which, by the way, I still haven't got mine. I'm the only one here that had the coronavirus.
I haven't got my stimulus check though.
Have you been checking on the thing?
Okay, but here's the thing. So when Caroline and I got married, first year we were married, we did our taxes, everything. It gets sent. It doesn't get direct deposited for whatever reason. Gets sent to our address. We're like, all right, cool, whatever. Deposit the check. Well, the next year we go turn our taxes in, and we're like, hey, we changed addresses. They're like, all right, cool. So they change our address. Ends up getting sent to our old apartment, which like y'all remember my old apartment. It wasn't in the best place in Clarksville.
Baltimore Drive, baby.
Oh yeah. And so then this year, same thing. Pick up my taxes. Are you still at 1630 Baltimore Drive, apartment 8? No, actually for the second consecutive year, I am not there. Get sent there again. Evidently the IRS just closed down.
You can't call them.
Yeah, they are not an essential business.
And they're like handing out checks. Like You're the one that you're central.
So y'all are telling me that y'all are mad because y'all can't get a to-go margarita right now, or you can get a to-go margarita, but the IRS is shut down.
Yeah,
that is.
I'm
ridiculous.
Sure there's like a skeleton crew and there's no one like taking phone calls.
I have not got my refund check.
I got mine
or my stimulus check.
So
once that happens, I'm gonna be rolling.
You guys get the refunds though?
Yeah, so the stimulus check.
Once you have a kid,
because you got a kid.
Hey, once you get a kid, bro, that check hits.
I don't make enough money to not get a check. You kidding me, dog? Come on.
We pay, so I've been married for 2 years, and I've paid both years. But and I've never paid before. But as soon as I got married, we don't have kids right now. I paid it.
Get a kid, man.
Yeah, there you go.
Just got to get a kid,
or just
that's more expensive throughout the year, though.
It kind of evens out. They're kind of fun. Judah, if you're listening to this, you're fun. I'm sorry.
Like the stimulus checks came out, and then I submitted my tax returns. A week later, got my tax return, and that was a week ago. Still don't have my
people at work check. Are like, yeah, we got our stimulus check. I'm like, must be nice. I'm like, poor right now.
I actually need it.
We direct deposit our what am I trying to say?
Refund.
Yeah, refund. And
you don't get a refund. How do you direct deposit?
Like we direct deposit from like I guess on the IRS website or TurboTax or whatever we did it through.
We thought we did direct deposit too, but
yeah, it takes it from like so we owe so like it takes us from the account, but like it came in. I think the stimulus check came in our bank at like on the 30th, so it was nice.
Okay, so we started this because Jeremy Pruitt's bagman is busy. Dude, yeah. Here is Tennessee's recruiting.
That's probably not even updated right now because there's stuff that's
they got an offensive lineman today, right?
Yeah,
and I don't have that. Yeah. So here's where they're sitting as of this was an hour ago, which it definitely could have changed. This is in the past 6 days. All this has happened. 5-star defensive end, number 1 player in Alabama, Dylan Brooks commits. 4-star defensive back, Kamar Wilcoxon commits. 4-star wide receiver Julian Nixon, nation's top JUCO running back Tion Evans, 5-star linebacker Terrence Lewis, 3-star safety Deshaun Rucker, 4-star running back Cody Brown, number 9 running back in the nation. They currently sit number 3 class behind Ohio State and North Carolina.
So they actually just jumped to North Carolina. They got Colby Brown, offensive tackle.
That's I mean,
so they're number 2 now.
This is the type of recruiting class that Butch Jones could never capitalize off of, but most good coaches, this is where really, really good programs start when you get this one guy and then all of a sudden it is snowball and it's just momentum,
like
recruit after momentum after momentum, and they just get all these just dudes.
Dude, I've been just hawking like Twitter nonstop this week just because all this stuff. And like right now, like Terry and Arnold, he's a 2-sport athlete, 4-star defensive back. I think he's kind of choosing between Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, whatever. And right now,
every recruit that I've seen on my timeline, like it's some cryptic thing like, oh wow, Tennessee's got it popping, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw one guy, he had narrowed down his list to 2 to, I can't remember who it was, and all of a sudden, like, Tennessee's back in his hunt now. And I'm like, this is absolutely crazy.
Yeah. So it kind of just piles on because
there's a
guys, it's like the Peyton Manning effect.
Yeah. It's like, oh, wow, this guy's going there. That was my boy at the opening or at this camp or that camp.
The thing is, a lot of the things, I forgot who it was the other day. I wouldn't be able to find it right now. Somebody committed and another commit that's not committed yet. They were doing it on their like Facebook Live, and he was Facebook Living with the commit that hasn't committed yet.
Yeah,
and he announced Tennessee, and the guy was like super excited.
You know that your program is doing something right when programs that have had much more substantial success than you. So if you missed it, Georgia and Oklahoma both tweeted about Tennessee. I didn't see Georgia's, but Oklahoma was like, they tweeted the highlight that was like the comeback on Rocky Top and Baker Mayfield.
Georgia did some type of like tweet about the last year's game.
It's just like that. Funny perception. So I saw someone tweet after Oklahoma tweeted, and they're like, alternate title, Heisman winning quarterback barely beats Butch Jones in Tennessee because it was Baker Mayfield. Yeah. But Jeremy Pruitt, whatever he's doing, if he's dropping bags,
it's Brian Niedermeyer, man. I don't care. Like
those black jerseys, they are bringing dudes in.
Brian Niedermeyer, I will pay him whatever he wants to stay. I would pay him whatever he wants to stay on staff at Tennessee. There's no way you gotta let him go. It's amazing to me what they're
like
doing
when good programs start getting all these guys. In my mind, I'm like, something's going on.
The thing that kills me is like, dude, I'll tell you, the man, Vol Twitter, everybody knows they're crazy. It's insane. But the people who are big mad right now, Florida fans are pissed.
Yeah,
are absolutely so mad right now. And it's honestly hilarious to see. And it's like, it's just they get so just.
And it's not about it. And it's not even Tennessee fans like, oh, we're gonna win the national championship next year.
No, it's just they're excited.
Yeah, they're excited for a change. Like, first of all, their AD at the time tries to hire this horrible coach and human being in Greg Schiano, and Vol Twitter erupts and everybody's like, oh, they shouldn't be able to do that, blah blah blah. Well, who's laughing now? Because Jeremy Pruitt has a top 2 recruiting class and Greg Schiano is at Rutgers. So obviously he wasn't that great of a catch. But yeah, I don't understand the saltiness from all the other schools. Real quick, Hayden, we are going to go to Hayden's Iowa Hawkeyes update of the week.
There's the graphic. There's the graphic. This week's update. There is no update. Coronavirus.
Thank you, Hayden. That was well done.
Do you guys notice? Watch. Look at my face. Look.
It's almost.
Are you okay? Well, guys, it was good to be back with y'all. Hopefully we can make this weekly. We want to be able to put out some content that isn't just talking heads pushing an agenda or Colin Cowherd not knowing what he's talking about and tripping over his words and contradicting himself. So that's going to do it for this edition of the SummerTree Sport.
I wanted to say real quick.
Oh my! I was wrapping it up, dude.
I'm not done.
Well, you should have said something before I started wrapping it up.
Well, I was letting you finish whatever you're saying, and now I'm going to interrupt you.
You should have interrupted me.
Like I just did. All right. I wanted to put some stuff that happened since the last podcast, how long it's been. Since the last podcast, we made predictions during that podcast that
what'd I say?
We were going to say Texans, the last game was going to be potentially winning in.
Yeah.
It was. We did.
Let's go.
We said this was Elijah saying Brissett will play well plays well and then folds down the stretch, which is what happened. I mean, you could argue that he never played well. I mean, there were some games. We also predicted that Deshaun Watson won't survive the season. He did. Whether or not he survives Bill O'Brien, different question.
They had already traded for Tunsil.
I believe so. Yeah.
Also,
we were
Tunsil got the bag recently.
We were going through the record on that last one. I didn't quite see. Brayden, you ended up before we did the last game at 7-8. So whether or not you had us winning that game, you had us at
7 or 9 or 8.
So first of all, have faith, my friend. But this also was after
before Brian Tannehill saved our season and Derrick Henry went on a tear.
What was yours?
I think it didn't say we were at 8-8 or 8-7. So we didn't quite say whether.
I think I said 9-7.
I think we were both right on there. I didn't get to concede the whole thing.
Who knows?
A lot has gone on.
Since that happened,
I've had 2 jobs since then.
Hold on. You've gotten your wife pregnant since then.
I've gone through a whole ass relationship since then.
That's the most shocking of all, really. I've had 2 jobs. You want to talk about jobs?
You made and about to put. You're not about to put it out, but your wife is another baby, another human.
We were already pregnant.
Are you sure?
Yes.
It's been 9 months. September, October.
We got
October,
pregnant
November,
at the end of
December,
August.
January, February, March, April.
Guess, huh? I guess I was counting that wrong.
So it was close, but
it's 9 months.
Yeah, I know. But I was in August.
We didn't know.
We wouldn't have known either. I don't think. Honestly, I'd planned it out that the next podcast I was gonna break it live on the podcast.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out because we never.
Since then, I'm just gonna go run through. This is basically what happened. Titans dominated the Falcons, great. And then a huge stinkers versus Buffalo and Denver. This is when we start to think the season's over. Mariota gets sacked.
And then we go to
Tannehill takes over. And I'm glad we didn't have the podcast end because, my God, I would have hated my life.
You still hated your life. We just
yeah. I just didn't want everyone to know that I hated it. The offense went on a tear. We got hot for the playoffs.
Derrick Henry was the rushing champion.
That's right. Beat New England at Foxborough.
The dynasty.
Beat the MVP. Lamar Jackson and his team lost in the AFC Championship game. And one of my biggest what ifs of the season is, what if Mahomes doesn't convert that scrambling touchdown
right
at the
before
end of the first half?
Yeah.
What if?
I think it was that I went to your parents' house to watch it. It was bad mojo. I should have watched it at home. Yeah. Stupid.
And then since then, we have said goodbye to Deion Lewis, Delaney Walker, and Jarrell Casey. And a few other people, but those are kind of the main ones.
Two of those I'm much more sad than one.
Yeah, you're right. That's why I had Lewis for.
We let go of Deion Lewis, Delaney Walker, and Jarrell Casey.
Yeah.
Right.
What?
We released those guys.
They're bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else, though?
I mean, a few like Cam
Wake.
Yeah.
Ryan Suckup.
Yeah. Don't make me say it.
Who else hated him?
I don't want to say it.
Who else? We didn't really release him.
We didn't lose him.
Here.
He just went to my second favorite team.
He's not here. He's not here.
Guy,
he's on my second favorite team.
Marcus Mariota is going to look so good in black and
I already look some good photoshops.
Say it.
Marcus Mariota left the Tennessee Titans.
Hey, he got a good deal though. Like
he's the highest paid backup.
If he ends up playing, he can make like almost $20 million, I think.
He going Tannehill, Derek Carr, and then I'm gonna be like, oh, Derek Carr's a cool guy too, and then we're gonna keep going until I get to someone I don't like. Like
we could sign Derek Carr. His backup.
Yeah, but he probably would.
What about Andy Dalton going to the Cowboys?
I'm all in as long as McDonald grows his dreads out. Like I just want him.
Yeah, why did he cut those? I'm pissed when I found that out.
Because dreads look awful on white people.
Not him.
They look bad.
Not in his helmet. I never saw him without the helmet.
Maybe in the helmet, but
inside the helmet, I was like,
bro, I watched. I know we're trying to end this, but I watched some highlights the other day, or I think it was the bowl game that they played in. He was slinging it.
Oh yeah, that was the thing about him was that he was slinging it. Okay, my wife's calling, so we're gonna wrap this up. Okay. It has been fun for the SummerTree Sports Podcast. Episode number, I don't know. But thanks for watching. Share it on
I think 5. Twitter 5 for now.
We're just going to post this on YouTube until we start doing it consistently, and then we decide that we're going to pay to do Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Yep.
It's been great, guys.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Oh, clicked the wrong one.